In this lecture, we're going to be talking about personality and neuroplasticity. Is it possible to rewire your personality? Now, the answer to this question is a bit more complicated than expected. But first off, we need to talk more about personalities. What are the different types of personalities out there? First off, we have extroversion. People with high levels of personality dimensions, people that are really outgoing and tend to be really comfortable in situations that involve social mechanisms compared to others that would feel a bit less comfortable or way less comfortable. These are the people who tend to restore their energy through being in social situations, through being with other people. And second thing is agreeableness. And these are people who are usually kind, sympathetic, and they are more than happy to help others. They love helping others. A good example would be Mother Teresa. And this personality creates a thin line between being cooperative and being competitive with others. Then we have conscientiousness. These are thoughtful people who have usually traits and mechanisms that are oriented towards detail. These are people who are usually driven. They plan ahead and they're never spontaneous. Of course, there are a few exceptions, but usually they like to plan ahead and make sure that they have everything under control. Then we have neuroticism. People who usually have a lot of mood fluctuations. They usually worry a lot. And in a nutshell, they have a lot of emotional instability. And lastly, openness. People who are open to new experiences, people who are comfortable trying new things, new ideas, people who usually appreciate a variety of experiences. And there are a lot of different positive or negative adjectives that can describe one's personality traits. Some positive adjectives can be impartial, independent, observant, encouraging, dependable, confident, valiant, trusting. And other negative adjectives can be arrogant, impulsive, obnoxious, rude, self-centered, thoughtless, unfriendly, vulgar. And you can probably associate each and every adjective with a certain type of personality. When one's personality tends towards neuroticism, you'll notice that they are sometimes arrogant, they might be vulgar and unfriendly, they might be rude or sarcastic. But another one whose personality tends towards extroversion is usually confident, adventurous, reliable, and optimistic. Somebody who has a personality that tends towards openness can be observant, imaginative, cultured, and capable, and of course, adventurous. Personality is not just limited to psychological studies and assessments. It goes all the way to get into the business world and other different sections that you would never think of. In organizational behavior, personality traits are one of the most important study subjects because each and every employee, each and every person that works for a company has a different personality. And the goal of the organization is to keep those employees that are crucial, these employees that are adding a lot of value. They basically don't want to lose people who are bringing them positive outcomes to the company. But each and every person has a different personality, therefore different personality traits. And you can't treat everybody the same way, because if you do, you treat everybody just like you treat a certain type of personality, most probably it will be unfair or unagreeable for the other personality traits that other people have. And this became one of the biggest issues in organizational behavior. What are the coping mechanisms to deal with people with all these different personalities and be fair with all of them without making them feel uncomfortable or making them feel like there is something wrong or there's something missing in this organization that they are looking for? And the thing about personality is even though it's something personal, its effect is social. Your personality has an effect on each and every person around you. And usually, having positive personality traits can have a positive influence on other people, and having negative personality traits can have, of course, a negative effect on people around you. People with a personality that tends towards extroversion usually smile more to people, to strangers in social situations. And this will produce a lot of positive outcomes. Most people will smile back at you, and it will make both of you feel good. Now, through personality comes your attitude. Different personalities are associated with different attitudes when it comes to certain tasks. In social situations, where you have to meet new people and talk to new people, if you have a job affair, for example, and you need to network with a lot of different people, the best personality type would be extroversion. He is the person who would deal with them the best. But maybe people whose personality tends towards neuroticism will have a really hard time during the job affair. They might get upset, they might get irritated and just leave. And the thing is, we can never control situations, of course, unless you can actually control it. But generally speaking, most of the situations are out of our hands. We can't control the situation, but we can control the attitude. So this person, instead of getting irritated, if he just said to himself, I need to be here because this is going to be good for me, there's a lot of advantage for me here, and he just took a deep breath, he relaxed, and he went for it. This is him controlling his attitude towards a situation that he cannot control. So after understanding all of these concepts, we can now understand what is personality. And personality, in a nutshell, is the combination of thoughts, emotions, behaviors that makes you unique. The personality makes you you. When you don't act like you usually do, if you don't act according to your personality, people tend to say, you're not you today. There is something different. You don't seem like the same person I know. And hence came the famous quote, people change. But if you want to rephrase this quote, you need to say, personalities change. People stay the same, but personalities change because of, well, we're going to talk about how it happens later on. But personality is the way you view, understand, and relate to the outside world, as well as how you see yourself. Now, the sad truth is, most people are not satisfied with their personalities and they wish they can change it. Because personalities, as much as they are personal, they have an effect and an impact on work experience, mental and physical health, social relationships, and eventually financial situations. And going back to our question, can personality change? And as we said before, the answer is not quite simple. It's a bit complex and complicated, but I'll let you answer the question. Think about your personality as a kid when you were growing up. Think about your personality right now and think about if your personality changed during this period of time between the time you were born and where you are right now. In between, did your personality change? And if so, how did it change? Were you a really shy kid and then you grew up to become this confident person who is social and he goes out and he's an extrovert and he doesn't care about being shy, he's comfortable in social situations and he has really good coping mechanisms with social situations? Or is it the opposite? You grew up being really, really confident and right now you feel like you're really shy and you're really introverted, you just want to stay at home because when you go out you feel irritated and you just want to go back in. And the majority of people will notice that their personality changed over time, but they never had any control over it. They never said at the age of 8, oh, I want to become confident, and then at the age of 12, boom, he's confident. There are a lot of different mechanisms that could interfere with this process. So, what can change your personality? First, labels. And labels are what we call today as judging. When somebody is judging you, they're probably putting a label on you. And people get affected a lot by judgments, especially when it comes from people who are close to them, from family, acquaintances, and peers and friends. When you don't want to go out with your friends, and your parents just say, "Why? You're confident, come on, go out. There's nothing to lose, go have a good time. You're living your life, you only live once," whatever. They encourage you and they put this label on you that you're this confident person who likes to go out and who wants to live his life. And of course, then it happens also with your friends. They're like, "Oh my God, this person, he always goes out. He's always good in social situations. You're so confident." You will grow up with this personality trait. You will grow up feeling confident. You will grow up feeling that you're comfortable in social situations. And the reason why is because of course, neuroplasticity. This is how your brain was wired. And it's not because of you. It's not because of you. It's because of your social environment. But at this point, it is you. Because before, people put a label on you. But right now, you believe that this label is true. Even though it might not be true, you believe it to be true. So you are labeling yourself as well. Now, the roots of this problem are not caused by you, that's for sure. But right now, you can control this problem because you are putting the label on yourself. Just the fact that you become conscious that other people put this label on you, you're going to start to understand that this became a part of who you are, and then you took this trait or this label as part of your personality. And of course, through labels comes affirmations. And I'll give a really quick example so you guys can understand it immediately. We'll take a situation where you want to talk to someone you're attracted to. Before talking to him or her, you will do some affirmations. You will talk to yourself. You will either say, "Oh my God, he or she is beautiful. I'm gonna go talk to them." Or you might say, "No, I can't go talk to them. What if they rejected me? What if they don't want to talk to me? What if I feel uncomfortable?" And then you start with other affirmations. "I'm not good looking enough. She's way ahead of me. She's way or he's way more good looking than me." Or "My body is just not really good and I just don't have the confidence to go talk to them." And the thing is, these things don't happen only once. These happens on a repetitive basis. And these affirmations would change your brain's wiring. These thoughts that you have whenever you want to talk to someone would actually become your reality. Neurons that fire together wire together. If the neurons that are firing together are triggering emotions and feelings and personality traits that tends towards negative personality traits, being shy, not being outgoing, not wanting to talk to anybody, it's going to become a reality. These neurons are going to link together and they're going to fire every single time you face a similar situation, a similar social situation. And eventually, it's not just about social situations, it becomes a personality trait. It becomes an automatic mechanism that you have in your brain. Moving on, we're going to also talk about stimulants. Usually, stimulants have different effects on people. People who smoke, for example, a lot of weed tend to be really relaxed. They tend to avoid social situations. Because usually when a person is high, they would feel a bit anxious in social situations. But that's the majority of people. Some people, of course, have different reactions to certain stimulants, but we're talking about the big image right here. And people who drink a lot, for example, they have a tendency to have this personality that tends towards neuroticism. People who take ADHD medications, especially ones with amphetamine in it, like Adderall, for example, they tend to be more confident and more happy. These stimulants can trigger these personality traits inside your brain. And in the long run, it becomes hardwired in your brain. And we already talked about stimulants and how they can affect the brain. So not only they can affect the brain, but of course, they can affect your personality. And another thing we can also talk about is traumas. We're not talking about physical traumas like physical injuries or damage or wounds. We're talking about some deeply distressing or disturbing experiences that affects human beings. And a really good example would be a TV show, actually. It's called 13 Reasons Why. I don't know if anybody watched it before, but if not, it basically talks about a girl who, out of school, committed suicide because of certain bullying that was happening around her in school, around her social environment, that led her to commit suicide, and how this had a huge effect on the entire city and on all of her friends and acquaintances and people in her social circle. And this show had a lot of reviews and a lot of impact on everybody, and it opened their eyes on how, first, bullying can of course affect people, but second, on how this experience affected everybody who was involved or everybody who was close to the situation. People went from being these happy, outgoing people who love being out with friends and in social situations to people who just want to stay in, not talk to anybody, people who are always irritated, people who are experiencing a lot of different mood fluctuations, and they had absolutely no sense of emotional stability. And all of this happened because of this trauma, because of this distressing and or disturbing experience that happened with them. Another thing as well is time. As we said before, growing up and going through different phases in life can have different personalities that comes along with it. Another thing is brain structure and chemistry, which basically means your genes. Your genes would play also a really important role in your brain structure and your brain chemistry. Nonetheless, it's not something that is fixed. It's not something that you cannot change. Because the entire concept of neuroplasticity is based on the idea that you can change your brain structure and chemistry. So even if you were accustomed in a certain way, your genes gave you a certain brain structure and chemistry, you can always change it because your brain is plastic. Moving on, imagination also plays a huge role when you want to do something, when you want to have some social experiences, when there's something you want to do. Usually and mostly at a young age, before embarking this, you would sit down and imagine how the scenario would unfold. So let's say you got a job for the summer, and you don't really like where you're working or the job itself. So before starting the job, you'll start imagining all the bad things that would happen. If you're working as a waiter, for example, you'll start thinking about all the bad customers that would be rude, all the long hours you have to work, that you will get really tired because you're standing and walking all the time. And obviously, this will not have a good impact on your personality. But if you look at it in a different way, in a way that, wow, I'll get the chance to meet a lot of people, I'll get the chance to have a lot of conversations with different people, I'll get to make some extra money, and I'll meet a lot of new coworkers. This is you adapting a positive personality that can actually help you. That's more beneficial than detrimental. Imagining how scenarios would unfold is a start. But usually, people's imagination tends to be oriented in a certain way. So if you think about this job in this way, unless you get the dream job that you had with every single detail that you thought about or imagined, you will find an excuse to start imagining negative scenarios that would, of course, in return, unfold some negative personality traits that are coming along with it. Moreover, we have habits. People who tend to work out every day, for example, they are facing social situations every day because they are going to the gym every single day. And as we said before, working out is a keystone habit. So with this habit comes along proper diet, comes along proper sleep. And of course, people are getting in better physical shape, which will boost their confidence and encourage them to be in social situations. So this habit can push your personality from a shy, introverted person to have this personality that tends towards extroversion and being comfortable in social situations. And finally, and most importantly, emotions. Each and every thing we mentioned before is correlated with emotions. Without emotions, all the things that we mentioned before, from labels, affirmations, stimulants, trauma, all the way down to habits, cannot have a good effect on your personality unless it's associated with emotions. So how can we change our personality through the concept of neuroplasticity in a way that is beneficial for us, in the way that we want to make it? How can we change our personality right now to a personality that we want to have eventually? And the first thing to keep in mind is that it's not going to take a couple weeks or a couple months. It is a long process that you need to adapt, and you're going to see the difference happening every single day, but bit by bit. You will not wake up tomorrow having a completely different personality. Even if you do, it's going to be fake, and you're probably going to lose it after a while. But faking it is always good because there are emotions that are coming with it. And this is always positive for the neuroplasticity system to work effectively. Now, the first step towards changing your personality is to identify the labels that people put on you and the labels that you accepted and put on yourself. Because of course, there are a lot of labels that people put on you that you never actually accept, or you never actually label yourself based on these. People tend to say a lot of things, but we don't adopt all the things that people say. So be aware of what people are saying and what you are applying, and find this combination that matches both what people are saying and what you are experiencing in your personality. And once you do, you found what labels you have put on yourself and what labels you accepted. The first goal is to be mindful and to be aware of these labels. Second thing is to use affirmations that would contradict with these labels. But do not use affirmations that would say, I am not something. If people say that you're a shy person and you want to be a bit more confident and outgoing, using an affirmation as, I am not shy, is not a good affirmation. But using an affirmation like, I am confident or I am outgoing, is way better. Affirmations need to be positive, not negative. So try to avoid words like I am not or no when you're using affirmations. In a nutshell, it's what you are, not what you don't want to be. It is exactly what you want to be and what you are. So it's not even I want to be confident or I want to be outgoing or I don't want to be shy. It's I am confident. I am outgoing. I am trustworthy. I am reliable. I am disciplined. And always use them in a way that would help you overcome the labels that you discovered. And next, you need to identify if you take any stimulants, and if you do, how these stimulants are affecting you and what you can do about it. If some stimulants are giving you these bad personality traits, and one way to actually know if this is what's happening is to stop stimulants for a while, a week or two, and see how you feel. See if your personality is changing. Even if it's changing a bit, then you know that these stimulants are causing this certain problem in your personality. And if that's the case, you either have to change this fact yourself, stop taking the stimulants and getting over it. But if it became a habit or if it became an addiction, then you need to seek different ways. Maybe seek support, seek help, or seek other structures, going into the psychology of habits and habit loops to be able to overcome these stimulants. And of course, when you do overcome them, you're going to notice that all the personality traits that were coming along with them are going to start to fade away bit by bit. Next, you need to think about traumas. Usually when you have this huge event that happened in your life that had a negative effect on you, that affected you in a trauma kind of way, it's usually something that you will not forget about. It's something that is still in your mind, and because it's in your mind, it has an effect on your personality. And as usual, the first thing to do is to identify it. Become conscious of it. Know that there is a trauma and it is affecting your personality just like it did before and is still doing it right now. And the best way to deal with this trauma is to read it based on what we talked about in the memories lecture on how to overcome and change memories. When you change the memory of a certain trauma and it becomes different in your mind, the entire trauma will change and you might actually turn it into a positive thing that can affect your personality in the way that you want it to be. So if you use the memory strategies in a way that you would replace this old memory with some memories that you think would reinforce the personality that you want to reinforce, it can actually be very beneficial. You're not just getting rid of the trauma, but you are getting rid of the negative trauma and replacing it with a positive event or memory that can actually help you even more. You are basically turning venom into water. And lastly, the 3 last concepts that you can use to change your personality. First is imagination, using your imagination to your advantage, using your imagination in a way that would actually align with the personality you want to have. If you want to be confident, don't use an imagination that would make you feel shy, that would reinforce these thoughts on you, that would eventually unfold in the social situation you're going to face. But use your imagination to your advantage. Identify habits that might be causing a certain personality trait that you want to get rid of. And of course, you can do that first through mindfulness, and second, you can change this habit or eliminate it or create a new one through the different concepts that are present in the lectures. And finally, emotionally charge all of these events in a positive way. Associate all the different personality traits that you want to have through the labeling, affirmations, imagination, habits, trauma, stimulants, and associate them with positive emotions that would reinforce them in a positive way. As I've said before, changing your personality will not take a couple days, nor a couple weeks, nor a couple months. It's a long process, but you're going to notice the change happening bit by bit. You're going to see it. And with enough persistence and consistency, shortly, people will start noticing it. And also, as I said before, people will start saying things like, you changed, you're not the same person anymore. And they might be saying it in a good way or in a bad way. They might say it in a way where they seem happy about it, or they might say it in a way that they seem a bit upset about this change. And no matter what their reaction is, be careful, because this is you falling into labeling again. If they have a negative opinion about how your personality is turning up to be, and you don't want them to have this negative opinion, you're going to start regressing and falling back into the old personality, because you're associating this new personality with negative thoughts that are coming from negative social structures. Therefore, you will be labeling this personality trait as a negative personality trait. You'll be falling again into your old personality trait, and you're going back to 0.